People whispered her name long before she ever entered a room. Elena Cole, the iron-willed millionaire CEO whose empire of luxury hotels stretched across continents. But on the freezing night of the company's annual gala, as crystal chandeliers glittered above and champagne glasses chimed in her honor, Elena felt something she had never allowed herself to feel: weakness. At first it was a faint tremor in her hands, then the room warped, voices muffled, and before she could steady herself, her vision tunneled into darkness. The last thing she saw was the perfect, polished world she'd built slipping away like shards of glass. When Elena woke, the scent was wrong: oil, metal, old wood, and something warm like cinnamon. A dim lamp buzzed overhead. Her fingers brushed the rough surface of a mechanic's workbench beside the cot she lay on. Panic climbed her throat. This wasn't her penthouse suite, or even a hospital. Before she could sit up, a tiny voice whispered beside her, "You were sleeping so long, Daddy said you needed rest." Elena turned, startled, and found a little girl with tangled dark hair and big hazel eyes, hugging a threadbare stuffed rabbit. The girl smiled shyly. "My name's Mia." Elena could only blink, confused, vulnerable in a way she hadn't been since childhood. A moment later, footsteps approached. A tall, broad-shouldered man in grease-smudged overalls stepped into the light. His expression held caution, not intrusion. "You fainted outside the community center," he said gently. "I recognized you from the news, but there was no way I was letting anybody leave a person unconscious on the sidewalk. I brought you here, my garage. I'm Lucas Hill." Elena tried to thank him but her throat tightened. Her body trembled in a way foreign and terrifying. Lucas placed a warm mug of tea in her hands. "Drink slowly. You've probably been pushing yourself too hard." Elena hated how accurate that was. The truth was she hadn't slept properly in weeks. Her board was pressuring her for impossible holiday season targets. Investors wanted expansion, competitors wanted blood. And in the middle of chasing perfection, she had ignored the quiet collapse happening inside her. But sitting in that humble garage, wrapped in an old blanket while a child rested her head on Elena's arm, something inside her softened, an unfamiliar sense of safety. Mia, uninhibited, kept talking. She told Elena about her school projects, her pet rabbit, and how her dad worked 2 jobs after her mom passed away. "Daddy fixes cars in the day and delivers groceries at night," she explained, her voice small. Elena felt a pang. She couldn't remember the last time she'd sat with someone who spoke with such open honesty, without calculating what they might want in return. As the hours passed, Elena tried to stand, but her legs buckled. Lucas caught her gently before she fell. "You're exhausted," he said quietly. "And I don't mean physically. You look like someone who hasn't taken a real breath in years." She wanted to argue, to reassert control, but the truth pressed too heavily. Tears burned her eyes, hot, embarrassing, unstoppable. For the first time in a decade, she let herself cry. Mia hugged her small arm around Elena's waist as if she'd known her forever. Over the next few days, Elena returned to the garage, first to properly thank them, then to bring toys for Mia, and later simply because the place felt like a sanctuary where she didn't have to be flawless. Lucas, though initially reserved, slowly opened up. He shared how he'd once dreamed of owning a proper repair shop, but life, bills, and single fatherhood had swallowed that dream whole. Elena listened, really listened, something she rarely did with people in her corporate world. But challenges rose quickly. The media discovered Elena's collapse and spun wild stories: addiction, secret illness, scandal. Investors panicked. Her board questioned her competence, and Elena felt the heavy hand of shame tightening around her throat. At the same time, Lucas's garage faced eviction. The landlord planned to sell the lot for redevelopment. He packed his tools quietly, telling Mia they might need to move again. Elena felt torn in 2 directions, toward her collapsing empire and toward the fragile world of people she'd grown to care for. One evening, Elena arrived to find Lucas sitting alone in the dim garage, his shoulders hunched. "Don't worry about us," he said when she asked what was wrong. "You have enough fires to put out." That sentence pierced her. All her life Elena had saved companies, saved deals, saved her reputation, but she had never saved a person. She realized she didn't want to walk away from this man, or his daughter, or the strange new feeling that had begun to anchor her heart. Elena made her first truly brave decision, not as a CEO but as a human being. She called an emergency meeting with her board and told them she was taking a temporary step back for her health. Gasps echoed around the table. They accused her of weakness, irresponsibility, even selfishness. She stood her ground. "The company will survive," she said. "But I won't, if I keep living like this." Then she walked out, shaken, but finally breathing. The next day, Elena returned to the garage with a signed lease agreement. She had quietly purchased the property in Lucas's name, with a note, "Build your dream again. And let me be part of it, not as a CEO, but as someone who cares." Lucas read the paper in stunned silence, eyes shining. Mia squealed and hugged Elena so tightly she could hardly breathe. Some challenges still lingered. Elena had to rebuild her health and reputation from scratch, and Lucas struggled with the fear of not being worthy of such help. But step by step, they learned to walk the new road together. Elena spent afternoons in the garage, her pristine suits replaced with jeans and rolled sleeves. Lucas taught her how engines worked, Mia taught her how to laugh without hesitation. And Elena taught them how to dream bigger without losing themselves. Months later, on the night Lucas opened his refurbished shop, its sign glowing proudly, Elena stood beside him as friends, neighbors, and even former colleagues gathered. The air felt warm despite the cold wind. Mia slipped her hand into Elena's and whispered, "You look happier now." Elena smiled, realizing it was true. She had finally found something money couldn't buy, a place she belonged. The story ends not with a dramatic kiss or grand gesture, but with something much stronger, Elena choosing a life where she was no longer defined by exhaustion and ambition alone. She learned that success meant nothing without connection, that strength wasn't the absence of vulnerability, and that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs happen when life forces you to stop. And so, the once untouchable CEO who fainted at a glittering party found her real life again, not in a penthouse, but in a mechanic's garage, with a little girl holding her hand and a man who reminded her that being human was her greatest power. The message she carried forward: you can rebuild empires, but rebuilding yourself is the victory that truly changes everything.